Okay, so moving away from macOS is quite a big step, and it's not to do with the software that you can get to and things like that. Well, partly, depending on what you do, but a lot of it's to do with the world around it, the ecosystem that you buy into, because you've got the phone, you've got the laptop, there's one right here, and then when you get into it, it's really hard to get out. And it's actually part of the Omarchy, I think it's Omarchy or Omarchy, I can't remember. It's one of DHH's like little stories on the information you get with the Omarchy about getting out of the services. I remember years ago, I really wanted, I had an iPhone, but I really wanted a Sony Xperia phone because it shot 4K or something like that. It had better video functionality on the Sony Xperia, and it meant I had to come out of the Apple world and switch to Google. And then all of a sudden, and I was working on a really big job, and I sort of really needed to be in the right, on the comms, and there were spreadsheets coming in, all this sort of business, but I wanted the filming functionality, so I switched to the Sony Xperia, and it was chaos, because all the things that I sort of took for granted and was really simple on my iPhone were, because I think the Google stuff wasn't quite as developed as it was, and it was just really hard because I'm still like over on the Mac. So it's a big step, and it's not so much about the technology, is it? I mean, Samsung and Google and Android make amazing technology, but it's literally when you're in it, it's hard to get back out. So, Omarchy, great. It's like a brilliant distribution of Arch, or not distribution. It's a remake of Arch that makes it easier for you to get access to such a powerful sort of setup. But if you want to move from Mac, you've really got to think it through how you do this. Now, somebody's already asked me a question about music software, and I'm going to do this the music one. I'm going to do a music workout, how to like bolt in stuff to Reaper and what's the other one, Ardor, and see how we do that. For my world, it's a bit easier. I mean, the first thing I do with any Linux distribution I ever get my hands on is literally write a script to install DaVinci Resolve, and that's like probably about 70% of my work done. So if I can get Resolve running, I'm good to go. But obviously it's tricky, isn't it? Where you want to go, sorry, the screensaver's just come up. You want to go between, you want to move between, you want your whole world to be in one place. You don't have to switch machines. So you have to sort of break yourself out of that ecosystem. So, I mean, some of it's easy, but some of it's not as easy as it seems. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through some substitutions. DHH, the David, I can't do his second name. I'm so sorry about this. Henneman Hansen. He's written, these are good substitutions, but it's making it work. And it is such a huge step to just sort of like cut the apron strings or whatever they're called and get out of Mac world and sort of like go, okay. I mean, I'm not talking to Windows users here because your world's a world of hurt with whatever goes on in Windows world with like drives, and I have no idea. I fired up my son's computer the other night and it was like with Windows 11 and it was like, what is this about? No, it is chaos. It's a bit chaotic. You have all these things, but thankfully with Windows, you've got a lot more sort of, you can choose different paths. A lot of people who use Windows would have gone to Google. So, their world to Google. Google's transportable onto Linux, onto anything really, which is the nice thing about, the Google world. However, there's the downside to Google. And then there's certain nice features, that you get with your iPhones and things like that. And, you want to replicate them. You want the ease. So, so this video, we're going to sort of go through cord cutting from Apple world and doing what we can try to do to move it onto a Linux platform, or onto Omarchy especially. I mean, but this sort of is repeatable, I would imagine, for most Unix platforms. I'm just going to get the bids in here. If you are going to choose one that's not Omarchy, which is Arch, have a look at Pop OS Cosmic. That's like really tempting. That's a really good one. But I'm really, as you know by the amount of videos I've made on it, this is great for me, and it just does what I wanted to do. It's clarity, which is what I needed from an operating system, as opposed to the gigantic mess that's on my Mac desktop. Or whenever I install another Linux distribution, it just ends up being the same chaotic disaster with stuff everywhere. Anyway, so this video is about sort of moving over and looking at options and things that you can do to make your life more sort of like it was when you were, when you were like using Apple. So anyway, enough preamble. Let's dive in. Okay, so here we are on Omarchy desktop. Now, you're going to think of this as the strangest way to start this, because you're probably thinking about iCloud. You're probably thinking about all these kind of things. But I didn't start there. I thought of something that is one of those things that is such a simple thing, but in this, it would really throw you if you're not like Mr. Super Terminal person. And I've obviously written a script. So anybody wants to steal the script, put it on GitHub, and incorporate this into this, please just, take it, do what you want with it. It's firewalls. Okay. Now, if you read through the documentation with this, it's like it locks it down, it does whatever. But there are times, especially as a creative, or just for home entertainment, you need to open up firewall ports. Now, obviously you can go in here, and you obviously, because you've got access to ChatGPT, and it's got on here is UFW. So how do I open a port for Plex, which is something you might want to use on UFW. So thankfully you got that. Yeah, okay. You need to open TCP port 2030. Now, all of a sudden you're sort of jumping in, you're jumping into something and you think, how do I do that? Right. So now I've got to open command over here, and you'd simply type it, but it's a really basic service, and maybe you just want to do it really easily. So, you just need a GUI. It's something I think you'd need a GUI for. It's just such a basic thing, firewalls. You make sure it's on. Thankfully, Omarchy is really secure. It is on. But you want to sometimes edit stuff, and you don't want to have to use terminal commands. I mean, they all say with this, it's like, it's very terminal, terminal focused for people because it's based for developers. So they're all over. But creative people like me, and I'm not saying developers aren't creative, they're very creative people. But basically, people like me, I just want to switch things on, do something, and then jump back into my program and carry on working. So I wrote a script for this. So let me just find it. Okay, so file browser. And basically, what this little script downloads, if you drag it over, it's usual stuff, chmod, whatever, it installs the front end to, which you can do really easily on any Linux distribution. It installs the front end to uncomplicated firewall, which is this. So if I go into this now, I bring it up, apps, and I type in firewall. Now it comes up. Now if you try and do this from the Arch package installer, you get like it fires up a box, and then you ask to put your password in, but you'll get no further because it's something to do with how it works with Hyprland. So I had a bit of fiddling. I like black screened my machine about 4 times and had to salvage it to get this to work. So it was worth it. So anyway, now it runs. So just press that, and then it asks me for a passwordy thing. And then there it is in the bottom right corner. So now you've got the GUI to firewall. If I switch it on, and there it is. It's picked up all the firewall rules that are currently running on it. So that 5331, whatever it is, and let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that one. If you could see on the screen, it's basically got a Docker thing, some Dockers, that's for programming type people. Port 22, yeah, obviously. And then 53317, that's for something we'll look at in a minute, which is local send, which is how you get around AirDrop. Anyway, so obviously, let's get rid of that over there. And then let's bring up another one. Let's bring up another ChatGPT thing. And then basically, so where was my last search? Let's do it again. How do I open a port on UFW for Plex? Okay, so here we go. UFW, and it's that. There it is. So I need to open allow port 32,400 on TCP. So up here, it's quite simple. You can just go add, and just do simple, and they'll call it Plex. Oh, spell it correctly. Protocol, we only need TCP. So let's just put TCP, and the port is 32400. Is that enough zeros? Too many zeros. Okay, and then close, and then click add, and it's in. And then now you've got your firewall. Now you can switch this off. This is just like the overlay. The firewall's not going to stop, but basically it's on. So just close it. And now that's running. Now I've got an open port for Plex. Really, really simple to manage. And also it allows you to very quickly, because there are commands where you can type verbose something or other and it lists all your firewall ports. So we just bring it back up again, quick apps. And then we go to firewall. And then put that back in, and it's up here again. So, okay, now I want to remove it. I don't want that anymore. Let's just get rid of that one. And then I want to remove it again. And you're back. And these rules will stay when you reboot. So let me just close that. So that's firewalls. And it's ridiculous, but it's so easy to do on a Mac. You just open a port up. I mean, the Macs, when you first installed them, I think the firewall was switched off by default, which is a bit of a worry. I can't remember. They may have changed that. But that's really cool. That's, you know, you've got an encrypted disk anyway. You're pretty safe. But that's literally your file. That's a lockdown, nice lockdown machine. But you can control the ports really easy if you want to do Plex. And it was just something that hit me. It's like, I want to put my Plex server on here. I want to do this. You know, I want to. So it was like, you know, put that on there and open it up. Anyway, that's super simple. And I've already touched on it. Let's talk about local send. So AirDrop, it's cool, isn't it? You can just drop a file from your phone to your device. So what they put on here already is a thing called local send. So if I go into apps and then type local send, it comes up with a screen and it comes up with that. So all you need to do is from any other device is a free app. So you get, you know, download it on the App Store. And then I put it on my phone. So if I go to local send, and then it says send. Okay, so I can see my device. You can't see it on my phone here. So I'm going to send some media. So I'm going to send a picture of, what am I going to send a picture of? I'm going to send a picture that I shot the other night walking down the river. Confirm, and send it to Gorgeous Mushroom. And my thing's called Beautiful. I think this changes every time, accept. And it's that simple. You can send any type of media over it. You can just send simple text. Let's go back. Done. Send a text message. Hello. Confirm. Done. Hang on. There it is. So I could just send text messages. So really, really simple. Let's just have a look where that file went. Put that back down. I'll go over to that up. I'm going to downloads. And it's that one. 4 days ago, 2 weeks ago. That one. There you go. It's just a shot of a riverbank. So that's come straight up from my phone. That's a DNG file as well. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. So, okay, so that's AirDrop done. And I've talked about it. So the other thing is iCloud. So what do you do about iCloud? Now, thankfully on here, if you go into install service, it allows you to install Dropbox. So Dropbox will go in, and then once you've got it configured, you get your little icon at the top here. He says, oh, let's give it that. Get my icon there, and you can install it. Now, there's a bit of a weird way to do this. I think it installs it, but you still have to go into the AUR or the packages part. And let's go install. And I had to do this to get it to work properly. I had to go to packages, and then I typed in Dropbox, and then it installed, and then you get the version that you want. So then if I go to F, you can see I've now got a Dropbox folder. Now this syncs up with my folder in the cloud, where if you follow my channel, I've got all scripts and stuff. So that's basically what's in there. And then obviously it now appears in your home directory. So then you can save files to it and have access to them anywhere. So that's great. So, okay, let's come out of that. So why would you do that? So obviously you can drag and drop files now, put them in the cloud, send them to your devices, which is very iCloud-ish. So the other stuff that iCloud's used for is backing up application settings and storing stuff. So if you use like notes and you move between devices, your notes are always there. So on here, they're giving you Obsidian. Now, it's a bit of a brain explosion, first of all, when you open Obsidian. It's not quite what you're used to. It's very, very full-featured, and it has its own syncing system built in. So what you need to do is once you've got Dropbox set up like that, then you can hook up your Vault from Obsidian, which we'll do. So go to Apps, go to OB, I have to be careful here because I'll hit OBS, Obsidian, he says, there it is. So at the moment, you see, I've got my Dropbox, I've got my Vault in Dropbox. So how do you do that? When you create a new Vault, and I'm going to call this Vault Test New, and then I'm going to pick where I want to save it, create, and then if I go to, where are you, Dropbox, go to my notes folder, and then I'm going to select that, create. So now that is saving in the cloud. So here's my notes thing. Another note about stuff that I won't get around to. There you go. So there your notes are in there. So that's sort of iCloud cover that's come out of that. So that's iCloud. So now I've got my notes are now syncing into the cloud. Now, obviously, you can do photos are a tricky one, but you can save your photos to Dropbox. You can have a Dropbox folder and put your photos on there because you can set it up so that you save to Dropbox. You can also do, obviously, Google Photos because the other part of this, they've already built in Google. Hang on, Apps. They've got Google Contacts, Google Messages, and Google Photos is already built in. So you could do it on there. You can also do it in, you can also do it off of Dropbox with the photos as well. So you've got lots of ways to get around these things. You've got the photos, you've got the contacts. The big one is, I suppose, email. Now, obviously, you've got Google Mail, and you can, use Gmail and all that kind of stuff. But then it built into this, and this is something I'm trying. I'm not 100% with it yet. I've got to see if I can port over, because our company, the people I work with, they use a lot of Outlook. But you've got Heymail, and they actually built that on a quick key. Let me just come out of this. So they've got that on Super E. Let's bring up that. So there's my inbox. I've just got this account, brand new. So basically, yeah, so you can basically, use this. And I've not really explored it, but it's also got a calendar built into it as well. So it's this week. So this is well worth, I think, Heymail is probably well worth looking at. They do domains because obviously a lot of the time you don't want XYZ, at Gmail. You want your domain, and you can attach domains to this. This is one of the big things, isn't it? You want to be able to attach your domain. So you've got your own company domain or whatever, like a proper domain on the end of it. I believe you can do that. I haven't got to that bit yet. But yeah, so there's calendar. And obviously there's a Heymail app that goes on your phone. So again, you can cross connect between the two. So yeah, so there's a lot that's already done. Now, there is one big one. Now, if we've been Mac users for years, we've probably bought movies on iTunes. Now, obviously things like Netflix, Amazon, and all those, that's just browser based. But what about, how do you play your iTunes movies on this? Now, this is an interesting one. Apple actually give you, let's bring up a browser, let's close these. Let's just go into a new workspace, actually. Apple actually give you a way to do this. So if I go to Super B, you can actually log in to Apple TV, tv.apple online. Here we go. And am I logged in yet? Yeah, I've got to sign in. So it's making me sign in, but you can sign in. And then if you look at the top here, there's a little thing that turns it in, copy URL, or you get it first of all. You can open it in app. You can make it an app, okay, which is like a web app. So if you go in here, I've got Apple TV. So Apple TV as an app, much like you've got WhatsApp and all those things built in as an app. So if I hit this, it will take me into Apple TV. Now, it's not logged in. This is one of the weird things. I have to keep logging in every time. And it will let me play. Absolutely. It'll let me play. It won't let me see my library yet. But I've been researching ways around this. And it's a bit convoluted because at the bottom, if I ever get to the bottom, it doesn't start jumping up. Start jumping up. Right. Down here, it says you can do it on Google Television. So fundamentally, you could install Waydroid on this. It's a bit convoluted, and you could run the app, because I can't see my library at the moment. I've made sure that in Chromium I've switched on play protected content, which is one of the things it tells you to do. But I've got quite a few movies from there. So this is one thing that sort of I haven't cracked yet. I can get into, I don't want to watch their stuff. I mean, so you can look, I mean, I bought F1 the movie, F1. I should be able to play it. So watch on Apple TV. So you click on that, opens something over here, and you're into an endless loop. But you can play the Apple TV stuff, like their own Apple Plus stuff. You can play that. I got that going earlier on. Hang on, let me just try it. To type, go in to do it, but it doesn't remember my password. So yeah, that works. So you can play Apple TV Plus, but you can't play your movies. Now, I'm sure there's a way around that. I'm sure there's a way, as I said, with Waydroid or something like that, where you can launch the Apple TV app that's written for Google Play Store inside this, but I haven't got to that yet. But there must be a way around it. But there should be a way in Chromium, because I'm going to check it. You can't do it on a Mac because it just jumps into Apple TV. There must be a way to go in. I'm sure there is on Windows to go in and play your library directly from the web thing, which would be perfect, because I mean, this is just an ideal solution. Go in here, apps, Apple. It would be just brilliant to be able to hit that, bring it up, and then play your movies as a web app. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be able to do that. So yeah, so that's, that's Apple TV. So of all the things that, you go through, you've got email, you've got, another one I was looking at as well is tracking services. One of the things is Find My iPhone. It's quite clever. Find My Devices. There are tracking systems for this. I haven't gone that far yet. These are more minutiae type parts, but they're probably important to some people, of going into these things and working out, how do I track my, well, I mean, if anybody lifts this, Jesus, it's going to be like a nightmare. But obviously, if you've got this on a laptop, and that's why the firewall thing is quite useful as well, because obviously it's locked down for firewalls, but you may even want to strip stuff down when you switch between networks. If you're taking a laptop, Omarchy's going a laptop, so if you want to take it somewhere, you want to control the firewall rules quite specifically. But yeah, so things like that. There's Find My iPhone, like location services. I think there is something, but there's going through the services. There's a lot you can just sort of move over. Dropbox between Google. I mean, it's a bit more fragmented, but once you've got it working, you've got the same stuff. I mean, you're paying for an Apple subscription of or however much. You could combine a lot of that into Dropbox, things like that, and you've got the AirDrop thing. That's easy peasy. But so you've got to work around it. But just to sort of finish off, I mean, just go back to full screen on the old thingy, so I can talk to you better without being in the corner. He says, let me just switch to that. There I am. Okay, so there's a lot to be said for these other solutions. I mean, obviously you're sort of battling it, with the bigger apps. I mean, I've done stuff about Photoshop and things like that, but you've got a lot in here already. There's just a few niggly bits, but I'll never forget when I switched to Google and to Android from my iPhone right in the middle of a tricky job. And I literally, because once you commit on a phone contract, there's sort of like no, and it got worse and worse. In the beginning, I was like, oh, I can get around that. But then towards the end, it was like, this is absolutely, and I swore I'd never use another Android phone again. I mean, I think that Apple's great with the phones, and I don't think that's going to be surpassed. But I think that the desktop now, with something like Omarchy or Pop Cosmic, things like that, there's really a way to get out of that, to get out of their walled garden, be able to use the hardware you want to use, control the privacy rules you want to control, and Windows, we can't help you. You're on your own. If you're on Windows 11 and you're like, your computer's exploded, you deserve everything you get. So, I mean, but with this, I think there's a way. And I think Omarchy just really triggered me off to go, okay, all right, then maybe we can do this. Maybe I could do that. It made me think, because I really want to use I really want to use the operating system, because it's just very productive for me and it works. So it makes you get, a bit cleverer. and think maybe there are other ways to do things, and makes you think about, cutting that cord with Apple. Anyway, if you've got questions or anything like that, ask in the comments. I'll post up. I need to probably test that firewall script a bit more, but I'll post that in the link so that you guys can use it, because I think the firewall, it's boring, right? But it's quite important. There's certain things on here that you don't really want to have to be too technical to do, that are like, really basic stuff. They built so much of it for you. It's ridiculous. But there's just little things like that, that I think that might be useful. Anyway, as usual, thanks for watching.